Hello, everybody. Good evening. All right, let me get to the chat section here so I can see what's going on. Guys, if you're watching the replay, I've been hearing a lot more from my folks watching the replay, and I really, really love that because I like to see who's been watching and if you have any questions. So if you're watching the replay, just throw into the comments section replay. If you have a question for me that you would like for me to answer, go ahead and put it in as well, because I do go back and try to find all the questions that I wasn't able to get to on a particular evening. Hola, Kristen. ¿Cómo estás, mujer? So I take it this means my microphone is working. I had to switch up my microphones tonight. Hey, Ashley, what's going on, girl? All right, guys, give me a quick heads up. Hola, comadre. ¿Cómo estás, mama? All right, guys, give me a quick thumbs up if my mic is working. I had to switch up my microphone system this evening. So, y'all know that the microphone trolls like to mess around with me. What microphone? Oh, you're funny, Kristen. Hey, Debbie. Thank you, Line. Kristen, she is my long-suffering tech team. She's amazing. She helps keep me together, but even poor girl, yeah, sometimes I'm beyond her reach right now. Hey, Brian, you got the ice bustelo. Very nice, Brian. Well, I've got the hot bustelo in my Cool Kids Cosi Talks mug. Where are all my cool kids out there? Guys, who's got a Cosi Talks mug or a Cosi Talks beer glass that they've ordered? Who are the cool kids out there? All right, these comments are flying in. I love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. All right. Hey, Benny, thank you so much. And Benny's watching me from my YouTube channel, guys. I am streaming from my YouTube channel. I am streaming from my Cosi Talks page. I'm streaming from I'm experimenting all over the place, guys. I'm also actually trying to stream from LinkedIn. So, just trying out some new stuff there. Kristen, what I mean is, girl, you're the brains behind this bunch. I'm just going to say it. Hey, Mark S., what's going on? Judah, you made it this evening. Judah, your question is top on my list this evening. Hey, Brett, thank you. William Mays, sounds good. All right, William, did you get my response to the email? I sent it out yesterday. Hey, Danny, glad you could join us. David, how are you? Okay, we got Jody in from Vegas, 111 degrees. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. Yeah, we just finished our first hurricane of the season, Hurricane Elsa, which is quite early for us here, Floridians. We're used to kind of getting our hurricane groove on more towards September. So, but thankfully that one passed us by. I think it's somewhere in the East Coast, so I hope nobody's going to get hit with that. We just got a lot of rain dumped on. Debbie's finally a cool kid. Cheers to you, Debbie. Let's see, Brett with his Kansas and iced tea in his Cosi beer glass. Yay! Ashley's got her coffee mug. Gonna have to order the beer glass. They are pretty nice, guys. I'm enjoying using them. We got Johnny V. What's going on? That's okay, Debbie. We'll let you have the boring water because you've got the Cosi Talk swag, so you're good. Hurricane treated us well. Dumped a lot of water on us, but that's okay. We're good to go there. All right, guys. We got a nice little crew on board this evening. Guys, Facebook loves to change things around on me and just to keep me on my toes. So it tends to kind of make it a little difficult sometimes to spread the word about the live show. So guys, if you're watching this live show and you know there was somebody who was interested in it, feel free to tag them in the comments section. I'm not able to tag folks directly, but you can do so if you feel like the person would like to join us this evening. Hey, Steven. Yes, the shirt. No, I had those shirts made, Mark, for my super secret project that I've been working on, that I'm rounding the finish line. I'm getting towards the finish line, guys. And when I do, I can't wait to share with you everything that I've been working on with this particular project. But yes, Mark, those shirts were made for that project, the Cosi Talk shirt that you guys saw me wearing in yesterday's promo ad. Hopefully in 2022, I can bring some shirts into the mix. But in the meantime, I do have the mugs. And yes, guys, here is my totally shameless plug. And I can't find it. Where's my shameless plug? There's my shameless plug. Please hold. There's always got to be a shameless plug from me at some point, right, guys? All right. So, guys, I don't have the Cosi Talk shirts, but I do have the Cosi Talks mugs. So there you go. There's a link to the mugs. All right. So for those of you, let me introduce myself. For those of you who are joining me for the first time this evening, welcome. My name is Cosi Belloso. I am a physical therapist amputee specialist. I've been a PT now for a little over 18 years. I do have a practice here in Tampa, Florida that is exclusively for working with the limb loss community. And that is my passion. And we've got a nice little set of questions here. A lot of questions, there's a little bit across the board, but a lot of it dealing with skin and wound care. And there was something I kind of went on the support pages today, because every once in a while I do like to jump on these support pages and just see, what are the questions people are asking? What is it that, is troubling you? And there was definitely one particular post today that made me cringe. I'm not gonna lie, it made me cringe, and we're gonna talk about that a little bit further on this evening. Let's see, Mark, you crack me up. All right, guys. So let's just jump into the first question. The first question comes to me from Judah, and Judah's been a longtime viewer, but I hadn't seen him for a while, so I'm so happy he's joining us this evening. So Judah says, "Hey there, it's been a long while. In February, I had some setbacks. I noticed that my amputated leg skin had some breakdown. I've been in wound care, and it turns out I had 3 pressure wounds coming from fluids. Thank goodness things are healing nicely. I was told once I have the green light, I can resume using my prosthetic leg after a week. I'm almost done, but the skin is not very thick. For 4 years, I've never had issues with skin breaking down and was very careful. I'm concerned about returning to walking as the skin area seems to be thin. Not really sure if this is wise. Any thoughts on this? Is it really safe to walk on the leg? I'm feeling like I'm starting from ground zero and not sure where to go." Okay, so guys, when it comes to, and again, this is going to be a very popular topic tonight. I used to do, yes, my specialty is working with the limb loss community, but I've worked in several different other specialties in physical therapy. One of them is wound care. I spent a lot of time working with wound care patients and wound care debridement and all that kind of good stuff. So a little bit of knowledge there. When it comes to skin, guys, okay, and you guys have heard me say this a lot on the show, skin is the absolute most important priority for you as a prosthetic user, okay? That's what everything gets piled onto, right? Prior to your amputation, your skin on your leg was open to air all day long. Even if you were wearing pants, right? It was relatively open to air. And some of you might have very good skin, but the thing is, everything changes when you start putting liners, socks, and a hard plastic type prosthetic device on top of that. And then you're covering that skin for 8, 10, 12, sometimes 14 hours a day, right? So you've heard me, bang that dead horse a lot of times in terms of keeping that skin healthy, okay? Now, situations happen, right? At some point in your life as an amputee using a prosthesis, you're going to experience a fall, and you're going to experience some form of skin breakdown, whether it's in the form of a simple blister or something a little bit more serious. Unfortunately, that is just the nature of using a prosthetic device. It happens to the best of us, right? In Judah's case, sometimes you can have a fluid overload. So for example, if somebody has an autoimmune disease, if someone's diabetes is not controlled very well, if someone has high blood pressure issues, kidney issues, right? And they're retaining a lot of water, okay? It can get to the point where this water starts getting into the tissues, and we call that edema, right? And the problem is when it gets to be too much, okay, 2 things will happen to you when you're using your prosthesis. Your prosthesis is going to get too tight, right? And then it's going to cause problems with skin friction because it's too tight. And also, all that edema, all that pressure in your leg starts to affect your circulation. Okay, so you can create kind of a perfect storm in there. Okay, and you can create pressure ulcers as a result because the circulation in there starts to get compromised. And it's a wound that doesn't start from a nick or a cut or an abrasion. It's a wound that starts from inside your body and then kind of erupts open. So it can actually be a wound that's kind of brewing and cooking in there for a while before you even notice it. And by the time it kind of opens up at the surface, you got yourself a pretty serious situation there. Okay. So you're going to hear me talk a lot about wound care specialists tonight, because I think that is a huge, huge thing that is not as well utilized in the medical community as it should be. Okay. And I mean this as from clinicians who don't know when to refer to a wound care specialist as well. Okay. So Judah did the right thing. He went to a wound care specialist. He stayed off the leg. The skin is closed. The wound is healing. Okay, so now what? Because you're right, Judah. The skin in that area is not completely remodeled yet. okay, especially if there's scarring, okay? If you had enough of a wound that you have a scar there, that scar tissue is going to be more fragile. And it's going to take months for that scar tissue to really remodel and mature. And in the meantime, you need to protect it so that you don't incur a blister or reopen up that wound. But how do you go about doing that? Okay. So, two things, and I'm going to get to those two things in just a moment. Let me just, a few more comments are coming in here, and I want to make sure I address. Hey, we got Jennifer on board, Rita. Pat, I hope I unfroze for you. Okay. Let's see. Johnny says, am I going to get out of character again? Watch out when Cosi cringes. Oh, Johnny, it's coming tonight. Let me tell you, you're going to hear me go off on a soapbox later on tonight. Stephen, I'm going to get to your question in just a moment. Okay, so guys, when it comes to newly healed skin, and many of you have had this, so show of hands real quick. How many of you have had blisters, right? How many of you have had blisters while using your prosthesis and you let the blister heal, and then when you put your prosthetic leg on again, it opened the blister back up again, that new skin? How many of you has that happened to? No shame, no judging. Go ahead and put it in the comments section. How many of you has that happened to? Okay. So when you have a newly healed wound, whether it's a blister or whether it was an open wound, you approach it the same way you approach it when you first started wearing your prosthesis, okay, with a wearing schedule, okay? And guys, with me, with my patients, especially my first time prosthetic users, I'm very strict with the wearing schedule for that reason alone, because the skin needs to get used to wearing a prosthesis. Notice I said the skin needs to get used to wearing a prosthesis, not the skin has to get calloused up and toughened up. No, okay? The skin needs to get used to it. Okay, so for some people who have very fragile skin, it may mean that they can only wear their prosthesis for 5 or 10 minutes at a time, and then they have to take everything off, right, to give their skin a break. I have patients whose skin is just that fragile, and then we have to build up the resistance a little bit each day. So Judah, in your case, here's how I would approach it. Get your timer. And guys, I literally bust out like a stopwatch timer with my patients who have very delicate skin. I have them put everything on, the liner, socks, whatever it is you got going on, socket, and I start the watch for 5 minutes. And I'll have the patient stand up in the bars, do a little bit of weight shifting. If they're more mobile, you know, Jude, I imagine as you are, walk up and down just a little bit, 5 minutes. 5 minutes, because guys, it really doesn't take long to form a blister. Okay. So 5 minutes by the watch. And then you sit down, you take everything off. Liner, socket, everything. Is it a pain in the neck? Absolutely. But that's what you got to do to keep your skin healthy as you're getting your skin used to it. Look for hot spots. Specifically in your case, Judah, look for the places where you had those wounds. Is it turning beet red and the redness is not going away? Is it turning pink and then the pink starts to subside with a few minutes of rest? Okay. Those are the things you need to watch out for. If it's red and it's staying angry red, then you know you're done for the day. Okay. If it's pink and it starts to subside after a few minutes, then you know that you can put your leg back on again and give it another try. And it could be, Judah, that you're doing 5-minute increments, maybe 10-minute increments, a couple of times a day. The important thing is, don't rush this. You already spent a lot of time trying to heal these wounds and getting them back and getting them closed and healthy. So it's worth it, your effort, to take the time to do this the right way. Okay. And now, as far as products are concerned, I use very few products on my patients, because for me, I'm like, the less you use on your skin, the better. And you guys have heard me, the liquid to powder lotion, the Vital Fit liquid to powder, it's one that I like to use on my patients, especially if they have a hot spot, like a newly healed skin, not on the open skin, but newly healed skin, to put some of that liquid to powder on there to prevent that friction and shearing. Okay. The other thing you need to consider, what caused the wound in the first place, right? So Judah, in your case, if you had an overload of fluid, how is that being managed? Is that okay? Is it under control? Does your prosthesis fit well? Because it's been a couple of months since you've worn your prosthesis. Your limb could have changed shape in the meantime. So you might need to have your prosthetist kind of check eyeball and make sure that everything is fitting properly so you don't get any new friction spots on there. All right, guys? Yeah? Thumbs up? Okay. Hey, Andrea, there's my occupational therapist right there. Lonnie, I'm glad you could make it. Con padre, man. Glad you're here. I love seeing you and Lena on here every Wednesday night. We've got Sandra. We've got Lisa on board. Timothy, good to see you, man. Let's see. Debbie says, my prosthetist would only let me wear an hour the first day, 2 hours the second, and so on. I overdid it, and they actually took my test socket away for a few days. Debbie, I'm so glad you said that because it makes me feel like less of a meanie. So Andrea, yes, on so so when I worked at Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami in my earlier years as a therapist, the prosthetist clinic was literally down the hallway. Okay. So when a person would come in for their prosthesis, they didn't get their prosthesis. I got their prosthesis. Hear me out, guys. So the prosthetist would fit the patient for the prosthesis, and he would turn it over to me or to my colleague who was also seeing amputee patients. And the reason behind this is because we knew that if we gave our patients the prosthesis to take home right away, many of them would start wearing it for hours upon hours, and they would have massive skin breakdown. So at the hospital that I worked at, that was the particular protocol for the hospital, that the therapist would get the prosthesis. Now, keeping in mind, guys, in this hospital, we had a well-rounded program for amputees. So we were all communicating with one another and things were running. We had some really great outcomes with our patients. Okay. So, we would not give the prosthesis to the patient until they had a couple of sessions with the physical therapist. Okay. And our protocols as PTs, the patient had to demonstrate to us that they knew their wearing schedule. Okay. So literally, once I would teach my patient, right, I would hand them their prosthesis and I would sit there and I would say, okay, walk me through your wearing schedule at home. And I would grill my patients. I would tell them, when do you start the stopwatch? Do you start it when you put your liner on or after your full leg is on? What are you looking for? And what red spots are you going to see on your particular limb? And how do you handle a red spot? And how do you know when you can use your liner again and put it on again? And how do you know when you have to stop wearing guys, we put our patients through the gauntlet because we wanted our patients to protect their skin. And I'll tell you what, I am super proud of my track record working at that hospital. I very rarely had a patient skin breakdown. Very rarely. Okay, because we made it so important to them to follow these wearing schedules. And yeah, I was a meanie. We would take away a person's leg if their skin broke down because they overused the wearing schedule. And that was the protocol that was told to me when I was being trained for this position. And they're like, nope, you got to take away the patient's leg. And I'm like, that feels so awful. And they said, we need to do it to make sure that they let their skin heal. Okay, so it sounded a little harsh, but like I said, guys, we had a really wonderful track record with making sure our patients didn't have skin breakdown. So Andrea, as far as the wearing schedule would be concerned, is I started, if it's somebody I didn't know and somebody who was a new prosthetic user, meaning they themselves didn't know about their own skin, I was always very conservative. So I would start with 5 minutes, 2 or 3 times a day. And there would usually be 1 or 2 days between sessions of seeing the patient. So I would tell them, okay, 5 minutes, 2 to 3 times a day, take everything off, look at your skin. Notice where you have some red spots, right? On a below the knee amputee, you might see some redness. Come here, Bob. It's been a while since you've done your job. Okay. So on my below the knee amputees, it would be normal to see a little bit of redness right under the kneecap where that patellar tendon is. Just a little bit of pinkness there you might notice. And if the person had a particularly prominent fibula, it's this little bone to the side, you might see a little pinkness there. You might see a little bit of pinkness on the sides of the shin, the front shin, the tibia bone. So you might see some pinkness there, but you should also see that pinkness resolve itself within a few minutes of the person resting. Okay. And everybody's a little different. There are some people that right away, after the first couple of sessions of doing 5-minute wearing sessions, they could wear it for a lot longer, a lot faster. Okay. But even myself as a clinician, if I tried to rush a patient who had very fragile skin, it would always bite us in the butt at the end. Okay. So a little bit of precaution usually was worth a lot, because obviously, as you guys know, the minute you get a blister, the minute you get any kind of breakdown, it's game over until that skin is completely healed and you can't use your limb at all. Okay. Mhm. All right, sorry, I'm like scrolling through. You guys got some really great questions tonight. So let me make sure I've got, there was one in here from Steven. Steven, I'm trying to find, there it is, Steven. So Steven earlier asked, is an ischial containment socket supposed to be a little uncomfortable? Yes and no, Steven. So ischial containment, guys, this is for my above the knee folks. Just a quick little anatomy lesson, right? This is your ischium. Sorry, Mom, I know that's kind of a personal space for you, right? Basically, when you're sitting on your bottom, it's what people call the butt bone. Okay, so you got one on each side, here and here. Okay, so when you have an ischial containment socket, it's a socket that goes all the way up and it encases your ischium, your butt bone. Okay, so it's going to kind of cover things up right there. Now, socket design has not changed too much in the past few decades, and I've done a show or two on socket design. But one of the big changes that was made in socket design in the 80s is that we went from a quadrilateral socket that was very wide from a side-to-side standpoint, and it morphed into the ischial containment socket, which is longer from front to back. I hope that makes sense, guys. But in containing that ischial, basically the ischium, you're containing it in there. It also just provides more support. Now, it's pushing up on the ischium. So it's like basically like having someone with their thumb right on your bum just pushing up. So it's something to get used to, definitely having that pressure there. It should not be painful. Okay. And guys, this is where I really value a skilled prosthetist, because a skilled prosthetist will be able to make a good ischial containment socket that is comfortable for the person to use. And that's a hard thing. It's not an easy thing to do. There's one particular gentleman here in St. Petersburg, Mike, who does a really wonderful job at making a comfortable ischial containment socket. And he's seen, he and I have worked together on a couple of patients, and it's been game changers for them. It gives them more stability. It really locks that femur into place. But yes, it does take some getting used to. And I know this might sound like a bit of a crude way of describing it, but Stephen, in the beginning, it should feel as uncomfortable as someone having their hand on your bum. Like, if somebody's walking around with their hand on your bum all day, it's going to be just a little uncomfortable in many different ways. But it shouldn't be painful, okay? And over the course of time, if the socket is made well, most people, people can do well with these particular devices. All right. Here we go. Chuck, I'm glad you could join us this evening. You're watching me from my YouTube channel. Stephen asks, have you ever heard of AKs using compression sports underwear to stop chafing? Yes, actually, Stephen. And actually, who was Greg? Greg Menino. He's been on my show a couple of times. He's one of my favorite co-hosts. He is a prosthetist. He's an above the knee himself. He's also a 22-time Paralympian, Olympian world champion. Downhill alpine skier. I hope I got that right. So the guy's a friggin' rock star. Okay, so he has mentioned that when it comes to, especially with the sports, sometimes to use those tight-fitting underwear to help with the chafing for the higher activity sports. Some of my bicyclists also like to use that, the tighter shorts for bicycling. I would always say, Stephen, if you're doing anything to change what's going in around your socket, just make sure you check with your prosthetist to make sure that the suspension is not being compromised, and that the fit is not compromised. If you're someone that you're like, yep, I definitely want to use the tighty whities a little more with my leg, then just make sure that when you go in for your socket fits, that's what you're wearing, so your prosthetist can see how everything fits. For chafing though, and like I said, I'm a runner, so we run into chafing all the time. This liquid to powder stuff, it's awesome. Awesome. Let's see. Shirley says, I went to the doctor and he gift wrapped me and I couldn't get on my leg to walk out 2 weeks. Yeah, I know it sounds a little harsh to take someone's leg away because they have open skin, but hey, Mark, I'm glad you could join us. All right. Let's see. Ashley with her long overdue random question. I miss those random questions, Ashley. She says, what are your thoughts on amputees going to a chiropractor? My back has been hurting off and on since June. I have gone to my prosthetist, always good with my height and alignment, and to my PCP, wondering if I have a chiropractor could help. Okay. So, for me, I I respect chiropractors. I do. I respect the good chiropractors. And just like physical therapists, there's good chiropractors and then there's not so good chiropractors. There are chiropractors who are highly skilled with manual manipulation, meaning they know how to manipulate a joint and manipulate bones, okay, to help reestablish alignment, okay? When it comes to things like back pain, I'm always for conservative treatment first, okay? And in the sense that a physical therapist, this is where a physical therapist can really come in handy. As a physical therapist, we're going to be looking at the entire core. We're going to be looking at the strength of your front abdominals, your back extensors, the pelvic floor muscles, the diaphragm. We're going to be looking at everything. We're going to be looking at your cervical spine, your thoracic spine, joints below your spine, okay, to see where is the problem coming from, okay? Now, if there is a problem with the skeletal alignment, many physical therapists, well, we're all trained, but many physical therapists will regularly do small manipulations to help put the skeletal alignment back in order and then do the strengthening around it to keep things tight. Okay. So, guys, if you're looking to have skeletal manipulation done, okay, skeletal realignment done, you also need to follow it up with a strengthening program by a physical therapist, okay? All due respect to chiropractors, they don't have that same knowledge that physical therapists do when it comes to prescribing muscle exercises to really get everything strong the way it should be, okay? Here are the problems, and there's pros and cons, guys. I'm just letting you know so that you know what questions to ask. My only concern is when someone goes repeatedly to the chiropractor, okay, and they are repeatedly having their joints manipulated, okay? These joints are being held together by ligaments. So every time you manipulate, you're putting a stretch on these ligaments. And these ligaments are like rubber bands. So if you are constantly manipulating, constantly stretching out those rubber band ligaments, what's going to happen? You're going to have ligamentous laxity and you're going to have joint instability, okay? And I've seen this happen. Now, does this happen every time someone goes to see a chiropractor? No. Okay. And like I said, there's good ones and then there's not so good ones. Same way as good PTs and not so good PTs. Okay. So you need to have a very careful conversation with whichever chiropractor you decide to use and see what is their philosophy on all this. Okay. If they're telling you, nope, I've aligned you, you're good to go home, you don't need to do anything else, that's a problem. That's a problem because whatever it was that got your skeletal alignment out of alignment, it's not going to be fixed just by putting it back in alignment. You have to strengthen everything else around it. Okay, does that make sense? So Ashley, it's a two-part thing. If you're going to go see a chiropractor, follow it up with a visit to your physical therapist and let them know what's going on and have that conversation with them. Let's see. But in just in hindsight, just so you know, like, you know, I've had once or twice in my life where I've had to have certain parts of my spine manipulated. And it just so happened that one of my physical therapy colleagues was certified in manipulation. So they were able to do the manipulation for me, kind of get me back in place, but then I had to do the strengthening around it to keep everything there. Hey, Doug, I'm glad you could join us this evening. Glad you're going out for a walk, man. Let's see. So Michelle asks, hello, Cosi, is adding padding to the socket normal? Besides socks, does that go on until you need a new socket? What is the typical time you have first socket on average? So yes, Michelle, a lot of times prosthetists will try to buy you more time with your socket by adding padding here and there. Sometimes it'll go between the rigid, the hard part, and the flexible inner liner. They'll sometimes put a pad in there, a wedge in there. And it's a couple of different reasons. Number one, like I said, they're trying to kind of stretch out the time that you're in that socket, but also they're testing to see, okay, if we put a wedge in here, how is that going to affect your alignment, your suspension, your comfort in the socket, so that when they make you the new socket, they know where they need to make hollows and relieve pressure and all that kind of good stuff. So it's both a relief factor to help kind of get you better into that socket and also diagnostic to see what needs to be changed for the next socket. And when it comes to sockets, holy smokes, it's all across the board, Michelle. So in that first year, I always like doing this poll, guys, Cosi poll. How many sockets did you guys go through in your first year? Let's show Michelle some of those numbers. So put that in the comment section, guys. How many sockets did you go through in that first year as an amputee? Michelle, your eyes are going to go like, what? There's a lot of sockets that people can go through because that limb is changing volume so quickly that first year. So there's some people that they go in to get their new check socket, and within days, they're already shrinking too much and have to go and get another one done. So that's where, you have the socks come into play, some padding, maybe wedges put into the socket to try to kind of stretch out the life of that socket. Hey, Carolyn, I'm glad you could make it. No worries about being late. Let's see. All right, here we go. What are my feelings on the socketless socket? So I'm learning more about that, Carolyn. I was fortunate to work with a company called Limb Innovations a couple of years back, and unfortunately, I don't think they're no longer on the market. But we're starting to see more adjustable socket technology out there, and some people call it adjustable socket technology. Some people call it the socketless socket. Some people call it an adjustable socket. Few different names out there depending on the company. And we're starting to see more options out there. And that's something that I am making an effort to learn more about myself, and reaching out to some of these companies to learn more about their products. Just like everything else out there in the market, Carolyn, I think there's a very particular candidate for that product. There are some people that the traditional socket works great for them and they manage it with their socks and everything is hunky-dory and good to go. There are some people that they have a lot of trouble with their socks and managing the volume of their limb, and having something that's adjustable either with a BOA dial or other ways that they have the adjustability on there, it makes it a little easier for them during their day. Some people here in Florida, for example, they like having the more open look to the socket because it's a little bit less hot, especially with this weather. So that also appeals to them as well. But that's something I want to learn more about myself, Carolyn. Let's see. So Judah says, I'm doing all that you are talking about. My concern is the skin breakdown has caused that area to be very thin skin compared to what it was. From what I was told, it will never be 100% the same. In addition, could take months after healing for the skin to thicken up. How do I avoid skin breakdown in that area? So Judah, one thing I didn't mention before that you might want to ask your prosthetist about, your liner. Okay. I'm not sure what kind of a liner you were using prior to the skin breakdown, but if you have that patch of skin that's going to be very fragile, you gotta baby it. Take a look at your liner. There's 3 basic liners out there on the market. There's gel liners, silicone liners, and polyurethane liners. And right, we have all sorts of different flavors within those categories, but those are the 3 main categories. The polyurethane liners tend to be the custom made ones. They are a little bit pricier, but they're really amazing at alleviating pressure, and they're really good for people with fragile skin. So my folks who come in with burn grafts, especially those who have burn grafts on their tibia, on my below the knee amputees, for my below the knee amputees who have very bony prominence, that they don't have a whole lot of soft tissue at the end of that bone, and that tends to be a real hot spot. These polyurethane liners are really great at shuttling the pressure away. It's like pebble in a pond and the ripple effect. So it kind of shuttles away the pressure from that hot spot area. So Judah, that might be something to look for as far as long-term care of that skin. And again, Judah, it takes time. And I know that's not what you want to hear right now, especially after, all this time that you spent healing these wounds, but it is just going to take time for that skin to remodel and to strengthen again. So in the meantime, if you find that your skin starts getting red after 10 minutes, okay, then wear it for 9 minutes, take everything off, take a break for a half hour, and then put it back on again for another 9 minutes, and just start putting together times throughout the day, okay, that you are wearing your prosthesis and getting your skin used to it again. But yes, it is a time factor. I'm not going to lie. It's going to take some time for that skin to mature and to be strong enough again. But check into that, Judah. Ask your prosthetist about a polyurethane liner and see what they have to say about it. Okay, let's see. Oops. My pleasure, Stephen. Hello, Jamar. Jamar, you've missed quite a bit. We got a lot of great questions rolling around, but that's why God invented the replay, so you'll be able to start that. Let's see. Debbie says, once I started therapy, my back stopped hurting so bad. It only hurts really bad when I sit in my chair too long. And here's the thing, guys, and I hate to sound like such a hard ass, but when it comes to back pain and keeping back pain at bay, there's no shortcuts. Okay. If those of you who have been to a physical therapist, and I had this conversation with my mom, I actually had to like give my mom a talking to the other day because she also experienced back pain at one point. She went to the physical therapist and she did the back pain program and her back pain went away. Right? Wonderful. But then she stopped doing the exercises and the back pain came back. And I had to kind of explain to her, like, Mom, you got to keep doing these exercises. Our bodies don't just stay strong on their own. And that's what was contributing to her back pain. She had weakness in her back extensors, she had weakness in her abdominals. And unfortunately, guys, there's no quick fix to that. You know, the chiropractor, going back to the chiropractor question, if there's something that is not aligned properly that's causing a hot spot, yes, realigning it will give you that relief in that moment, sure. But if you don't strengthen everything else around it, that thing, that joint, that little whatever is going to become out of place again. Okay. And for those of you who don't necessarily have structural alignment issues, meaning you don't have anything that needs to be manipulated, but you have weak musculature, the only way to get that going is to do the strengthening exercises. And guys, we're not talking about like going to a CrossFit gym and doing an hour of sweating bullets 7 days a week strengthening program. No. A lot of these maintenance back strengthening programs take 10, 15 minutes of your day, which for me, honestly, it's worth it if it means you don't have back pain. Yeah. Yeah. I know I'm playing the hardball tonight with you guys. Sorry. I must sound like a meanie. So Mark went through 2 sockets. Rhonda went through 1 socket her first year. Stephen went through 6 sockets. Lonnie went through 4. Ashley went through 3, 5 if you count the test sockets. And yes, I do count the test sockets. Bill had 2 temporary, 1 permanent. David only had 1. Wow. Let's see. Debbie's had her first socket in February and has had 3. Kenny has had 3 since September 2020. Rhonda wore she only had 1, but she had lots of socks and padding. There we go. So you see, Michelle, lots of people. Sorry, trying to get to all these questions. So lots of people, lots of sockets. It is a normal thing to have to go through several sockets. Okay. So Donna says, I'm presently ready to fit my 3rd socket in just 5 weeks. Holy smokes. My physio team called me the shrinking machine. Yes, that is a very well-deserved title there, Donna. Certainly. And guys, it just amazes me. Like, a patient might go get their new socket on a Friday. They'll come see me on Tuesday. And I'm sitting there looking at them going, are you sure this thing fit well on Friday? Yeah. But just over the weekend, they've already started to shrink down again. So yeah, it happens. And it's a shock. It's a shock because you're sitting there, especially for those of you who are new amputees, you're sitting there going, what is going on here? Why doesn't this socket fit? I just had it fit a couple of days ago and now things are shrinking again. So Stephen says had a revision surgery and had to start over again, and that's going to happen. Haven't had the finished socket since the amputation 38 months ago. Oh my. Johnny says different socket strokes for different amputee folks. There you go. Bonnie, is the recovery time for RPNI longer than just an amputation? That is a fantastic question, Bonnie. I don't know the answer to that, but thank you for giving me a great segue to a plug for next week's show. So guys, next week I am bringing Dr. Leonard Dedesi back. He was the orthopedic surgeon who was on my show about a year ago. Wonderful, wonderful individual. And he has a lot of experience with the targeted muscle reinnervation and RPNI procedural surgery. So he's going to be coming back next Wednesday, and we're going to go more into TMR and RPNI. So Bonnie, I'm going to give him that question for you. Hey, Harsh, glad you could join us. Okay. Let's see. Danny says, what type of sock did you say for people in the South? I live in South Missouri and I'm outside daily. I think you meant socket, Danny. Some of these new socketless sockets, some of the designs, that are coming out, they are adjustable. So depending on the company and their design, they might either have panels that adjust in size. Some of them have what's called a BOA dial. I know the Click Medical folks, that's one company that does it. I believe it's called a Revo Fit socket. Hoping to learn more about them. But with their BOA dial, it increases or decreases the circumference of the socket to make it either tighter or to loosen it up. So some people like some of these sockets. One of the designs, for example, the Limb Innovations company that I had on the show a couple of years back, their particular design is struts. So instead of a fully encased socket, it's 4 struts that hold the soft tissue. So there's a little bit more breathing room there for the skin. Carolyn, finding exercises for back pain. That's an absolutely wonderful question. So Carolyn, if you go, let me see if I can do this. Let me see if I can do this, guys. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Hang on, bear with me, folks. Bear with me. Where did it go? Aha, here we go. Found it. And it only took me, like forever to do this. Okay, so. Sorry, I'm grabbing that link for you. Carolyn, the link I am posting for you right now. Okay. So back pain, I could do a whole show on back pain, and I really need to do a whole show on back pain. That's one of those big shows that I want to do in 2022, God willing. There's a lot of different reasons for back pain, guys. Lots and lots of different reasons. Probably one of the biggest reasons for back pain is core strength, right? Or here's another thought. If your back pain is due to something else, for example, a weakness in your hips, you're also going to have core weakness. I've yet to meet a single person who has back pain that doesn't have weakness somewhere in their core. So Carolyn, the link I just posted for you is from my YouTube channel. I did an entire series on core. What's it all about? How it works in the human body, how you can strengthen it. So Carolyn, there's some really fantastic exercises that Reggie modeled for me on that particular show. That is good. It's a really great generic core exercise program to get started. Okay, so go check that one out on the YouTube channel. I'm so happy now to have some of these shows, and like my YouTube channel is all kind of more organized right now, so I can kind of give you guys some of these references that I didn't used to be able to have in the past. So Mark has a Revo socket and he loves it. That's one of the socket or the adjustable sockets. Okay, sorry guys, I'm trying to catch up to these comments. Yes, Debbie, I have my gears turning as to how I want to do the back pain show, and there's a really special guest that I want to have on that show. So I'm kind of trying to make that happen for next year. Good. Okay, Carolyn, so you got that. Let me know what you think of it, Carolyn. All right. Here. Aha. Okay, so I told you guys I was looking around the support groups today, and I saw something that made me cringe. And guys, it takes a lot to really get my buttons pushed, but this one pushed my buttons. And this is honestly, this is the number one reason I started the Cosi Talk Show. So when I opened up my business, my clinic here in Tampa, my mentor who was walking me through the process on how to open up a business, because they don't really teach you that in PT school. So my mentor, he has several clinics in the area, and he said, go on social media and find out what it is that your prospective patients are talking about. What are their needs? How can you serve them? Right? And I was like, okay, that's a great idea. I've heard of this social media business. Let me give it a try. So I joined a few of the amputee support groups on Facebook. And what really started troubling me was I was seeing people asking questions, and the people who were answering the questions, were giving answers that were quite scary, to be quite honest, that they were very scary answers, okay, medical answers, and that the people who were answering these questions were not medical professionals. They were not licensed professionals. And that made my heart turn, just made my blood run cold to see that, because I'm just sitting there going, oh dear heavens, there's so many of us clinicians out here on social media, but the people who are answering these questions, they don't have a clinical background, and it's very obvious in their answers. Okay, so I ran into a little bit of that today. There was a particular individual who was asking for her son, and her son presented with, he had just had his amputation, and he has a wound sitting on his surgical site. And my heart immediately went out to the mother. You know, I have 4 children of my own, so I totally understand. And actually, my oldest just had her wisdom teeth taken out today. So I get the whole your kid has just had surgery and you're trying to find answers and you're trying to do what's best for your child. And you could see that this mom was looking for answers. And some of the answers I was seeing people given, it just made me go, no, right? So people giving medical advice that was completely false, folks giving medical advice that was just it was scary, guys. And the thing is, I wasn't getting mad at the people giving the advice because obviously these people were just trying to help. For me, I was just more upset at the situation. Okay, at the fact that this happens, the fact that people can't find answers in a timely manner from their clinicians, okay, or they don't know what clinicians to go to find the answers, and then they go looking for answers on social media platforms. Okay, so that was my like moment today, and I reached out to this particular mom, and I was able to get her connected with someone who was a wound care specialist. Okay, so I figured let me just bring this up because this is something that I see happen a lot, and I'm sure many of you have seen this happen too, right? So the question is, what do you do, right? As a clinician, for me, I feel sometimes a little helpless because I'm just like, okay, I can't be everywhere at once. I can't be on 20 different support groups, trying to answer everybody's questions and trying to make sure that people aren't going to the wrong places, right? And then sometimes, again, you have to be very careful on social media because you know that the people who are giving advice, they're doing it out of a place of wanting to help. They're doing it out of a place of wanting to help. So, recommendations when it comes to wounds, guys, okay, don't mess around. And in August, I'm going to have one of my local dermatologists. He's going to be coming onto the show. So we're going to be talking about how to manage skin wounds, how to manage rashes, all of these things, because that I do see a lot of pictures about that on the support groups, like people posting pictures of their surgical wounds, pressure ulcers, rashes, going, what is this? What do I do? Okay. And a lot of times I've noticed that people just simply don't know who to go to, who is the specialist that they're supposed to go to for these issues. So we're going to talk about that right now. Okay. So in the instance of this particular mom and son, the son looks to be healthy. And what I saw was a little patch, not a very big sized wound, but it had a lot of yellow gunk on it. And we call that yellow slough. Okay. And you're going to see that a lot of times in these wounds that aren't healing. So yellow slough is basically, it's dead tissue. It's a plasma. It's a bunch of proteins and things that are just kind of sitting there. Okay. It's dead tissue. And the problem with this dead tissue is that it sticks to the healthy tissue underneath. And it doesn't allow that wound to close in and heal. So a lot of times people will post these pictures with this yellow slough or black. We call that black eschar. That's really bad necrotic tissue. And they're saying it's not closing. My wound is just staying there. And that's because it's mechanically not being allowed to close and heal. So what do? You go to your doctor. Okay. And in this particular case, the person went to the surgeon hesitant, not because of the holiday weekend, because of everything going on, wasn't able to get through to the surgeon. Guys, I would go to urgent care in some of these cases. Okay. When you have a wound and you don't know what you're looking at, you need to get it looked at right away. Okay. And I've told this to several folks who approach me on Facebook and they ask me, what do I do with this wound? And I go, well, on the picture, I see one thing, but what it looks like in person could be something different. So I'd rather have somebody go to urgent care and get it looked at and be told that they're fine. They just need to do simple methods versus having them sit on it at home and have it turn into this big infectious wound. Okay. So when it comes to skin, when it comes to these wounds that are not healing, you need to get yourself to the doctor. Now, here's the interesting thing. Not all doctors, and I have great respect for doctors. I have a lot of friends who are doctors. Not all doctors are aware of wound care specialists. They're not aware that they exist. Okay. When it comes to a wound, that's who you should be seeing, a wound care specialist. Now, who are your wound care specialists? Nurses. There are certain doctors that do specialize in wound care. A lot of our general surgeons will specialize in wound care, and they have their nurses that they refer their patients to. Physical therapists can be wound care specialists. There's one that's been on my show several times before, Heather Flexer, and she actually has an online service where she can evaluate your wound online and tell you what to do. Okay. But they are wound care specialists. That's all they do all day in and day out. They care for these wounds. Okay. Those are the ones that should be helping you out with this. Okay. So, guys, what can you do? If you're on the support group and you see folks saying, do this, do that, here's this home remedy, or for the wounds, you can point them in the right direction. I've told many of you guys plenty of times, and plenty of times many of you have tagged me on a particular post. Okay. You can also tag my colleague, Heather Flexer. She's a wound care specialist. Or you can simply suggest to the person, you need to see a wound care specialist. That's who you need to go and see. Okay. When in doubt, send them out. That's what you do. All right. So yeah, I told you guys I was like tonight. So that's tonight's soapbox, guys. That's tonight's soapbox. Okay. All right. Sorry, guys. Now I'm scrolling through all the comments. Okay. My computer froze up for a second. Can y'all just post in the comments if you can still hear me? Thumbs up, thumbs down. I don't know if I scared my computer with my rant and rave and now it froze on me. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you. No, it's funny. My husband comes home from work and he sees me like yelling at the computer like a rabid football fan, and he's just like he just shakes his head because he knows me. All right, you guys can hear me. Good, awesome. All right, want to make sure I didn't scare anybody off. And guys, it's we're all trying to do our part, throw that pebble in the pond. But a lot of times, when it comes to things that you're not sure about, guys, it's always better to be safe than sorry, right? Send that person, if there's someone on Facebook support group that is asking for answers, it's directing them back to their doctor. And yes, sometimes it can be a challenge to get through to the surgeon, to get through to the doctor, but that doesn't mean you give up. You keep going until you get in touch with the person who can help you with this. Kristen, I got you, girl. I got you. All right. Here's another good one. So I'm going to roll tonight, right, with my rants and raves. No, I'm kidding. This is not a rant and rave. This is just a plain Jane question. So this particular person was saying, I am a below the knee amputee and I am better, but I'm still having pain in my hip. What do I do? What exercises do I do? And the reason why this particular post caught my attention was because of the thread that came afterwards and all the people's comments. And I go, okay, so here's something to talk about. So hip pain, guys, right? Hip pain can be from so many different causes, So again, in this particular thread, I saw people saying, well, for my arthritis pain, I had a hip replacement and this and that and the other. And the person who posted this, who made this post, she said, well, it's not arthritis and I'm not, a candidate for hip replacement. It's more of a pain that's running down the side of my leg. Okay. So guys, it really does make a difference, what is causing that hip pain. And thankfully, this particular individual is going to see a physical therapist. So I know they're going to get taken care of very well. Okay, but let's talk a little bit about the different causes of some of the hip pain that you might be experiencing if you're a below the knee amputee on your amputee side. Could it be arthritis? Are you kind of reaching up there in those years that an arthritic condition is starting to set in? And that's something that can be kind of diagnosed on X-ray as well to be determined there, right? Is it because in this particular person's case, the pain was running down the outside part of her thigh? Okay, so that's where you have the tensor fasciae lata, the TFL band, the IT. Some people call it the IT band, right? Iliotibial band, excuse me, going down the side of the outside of the leg. Okay, and especially in women, that can cause a lot of problems if there's weakness in the glutes, and you'll start to have that pain running down the outside part of your leg. Is it coming from your back? Okay, sometimes back pain can create shooting pain down the leg, especially if there's a little bit of a herniated disc. Is your sciatic nerve getting pinched, right? The sciatic nerve, big juicy nerve, and it comes right out into the muscles of your booty, of your butt, right? So when that gets irritated, that can also cause a shooting pain down the leg. Okay, so all these different causes of hip pain will have their different ways of being treated. And y'all have heard me say that a lot on this show. Try to find the root cause of the problem. Okay, then you can find the right solution for it. Let's see, David says, I had several wound care specialists prior to and after my amputation. They're absolutely invaluable, worth every minute of their care. They really are, guys. And when you have, like I said, once upon a time, I worked a lot in wound care. And, I like to think that I had a lot of good of experience, but some of my colleagues who had been doing it for decades, I mean, they could just look at a wound and they could say, this is what's going on with this wound, call the doctor, get the script for these medications, and let's start getting this person taken care of. And you would see these massive wounds that had not been healing for months start to close down. And it's really amazing when you get the right treatments on these wounds, how much that can change a person's life. Debbie says, my boyfriend took me straight to my surgeon. Yeah. And guys, the surgeon, especially if it's a wound that is from your surgical and your amputee, your surgical site, okay, if you're having problems with healing that wound, the surgeon is the one who needs to go and connect you to that wound care specialist or do the debridement themselves. Debbie says, only hip pain on my good leg, but now that I'm walking more, it's better. Weird. It's not weird, Debbie. It's actually a good thing. So probably if you had pain on your good leg, it was because you were using that leg a lot more, right? So it's going to get more abuse and with it overuse injuries, right? So when you start walking and using your prosthesis more and taking the pressure off that sound side, you're helping to alleviate some of that overuse injury. Good on you. Okay. Whoops. Here we go. Oh, this was a good one. This was one of those I'm just like, this guy's awesome. So there's a gentleman out there, Matthew Brewer, and he posts videos. He's a bilateral above the knee amputee. And I love watching his videos. They're just so wonderful to watch. And he was demonstrating how he was practicing walking up and down a hill. Now, thankfully, he was on grass because he definitely took a few tumbles as he was learning this. And guys, it is no easy feat. No easy feat, right? How many of you find it harder to walk on ramps than stairs? Show of hands in the comment section. How many of you find it more challenging to go up and down a ramp than you do on a stairs? Me. Rhonda says me. Thank you, Rhonda. Okay. And I was actually up. There we go. Ashley, Sandra, Mark, Kenny, right? It's a lot harder. Ramps are a lot harder. There's a lot more muscle control because it's a graded muscle control. When you're going up a stair, it's like, boom, turn muscle on, push yourself up, right? And you've got some momentum. With going up and down a ramp, especially going down that ramp, that momentum can definitely not work in your favor. Okay. And I was actually, the reason why I was enjoying this particular video was I recorded a video with Mission Gate Organization this past week. Love that organization. And in it, Will, he's a phenomenal physical therapist out in Richmond, Virginia. He and I were talking about the differences of working with a unilateral amputee, somebody who only has one side amputated, versus a bilateral, someone who is missing a portion of both legs, and the challenges that you have with both. And probably the biggest one is teaching the person how to go up and down ramps. But it's something that I think everybody needs to learn at some point. So here's my quick hack as to how I teach the person how to do this. So if the person, right, here's my ramp. I know, super fancy, right? So if there's a ramp here, okay, I don't start teaching my person up here. I have my person stand right here at the very end of the ramp, right? Because you're going to feel, even at the end of the ramp, you're going to feel a little bit of an elevation. Your feet are going to be in just a little bit of plantar flexion there, right? You're going to feel it, right? And I just have the person go from here to the level ground. That's it. Okay, especially with my bilaterals. And I put them with a railing on the side. There is no shame in using a rail, guys. None whatsoever when it comes to stairs, when it comes to ramps. And when it comes to stairs and ramps, I have my patients look down. Guys, I've said it before, whenever I wear high heels and I have to go up and down stairs, I am like looking down to make sure I don't break my neck going down the stairs, right? So once the person has mastered that first step off the bottom of the ramp, then I back them up another step and have them do 2 steps. And this is where it gets a little bit trickier, obviously more so for my above the knee amputees as they learn how to negotiate their leg and their knee. You know, if they have a mechanical knee, then they have to really be careful about locking that knee before they step down. If they have a computerized knee, they have a little bit of wiggle room, but they have to know how to activate and how to ride that knee down the ramp. Okay. So, you know, and basically you just go backing it up. Yeah, Debbie, it's scary. It's scary for the clinician too, because you're sitting there going, okay, let me make sure I've got my patient protected so that if they do lose their balance, I've got them, right? It's scary, okay? But this is why practicing it in a controlled environment really helps. So again, doing that first step until you lose the fear and you get coordinated, backing it up one step. And then after you've got that step, you back them up just a little bit more. The other hack is going up sideways, okay? No shame in that, guys. It's whatever, and Will and I, when we were discussing this on the video that we recorded, we both agreed, you know, it's whatever keeps you safe in the community and gives you that freedom to move around. Okay. If you've got to get up that ramp and you have to use the rail and go up sideways, then do it. Go up sideways and get yourself up that ramp so you can get to where you need to go. Okay. That's what it boils down to. All right. And then practice, guys. I mean, and that's what I loved about seeing Matthew's video today is you see him and he's a young guy. You can tell he's in pretty good shape and he has to practice to lose the fear and to get that coordination, right? So Debbie says, therapist taught me, and that's how they did it with her on the ramps. Good. David says, yes, working on hills, ramps, and elevated terrain. No joke. Lots of work, coordination technique, and understanding how the microprocessor knee works. Yes. Can be frustrating and scary. Double yes. Pat says, can do steps and ramps. Tough part for me is walking on a side hill slope with the prosthetic leg up. That one is that's almost impossible to do, Pat. Usually when I see folks in that situation, I just tell them, turn around, face the other way so that you're leading up with your sound or stronger leg. So there we go. All right, guys. I think I covered everything tonight. Got all the questions in. Guys, if you haven't already done so, sign up for my email subscription at cositalks.com. I'm going to put that in there. Okay. On my website, check out my website, guys. I've got a lot of information in there. I also have a place where you can email me your questions directly. So if you're having trouble finding me on Facebook, you can go onto my website. I answer all the questions. It might take me a day or two, but I do get to them. And sign up for my email subscription. With my email subscription, I promise I don't bombard you with emails. It's just one email a week where I will post the link to the latest show and other fun news that I might have for you. So guys, that's it for today. Next week, guys, okay, having Dr. Leonard Dedesi, orthopedic surgeon, on board the show. We are going to be talking about TMR, targeted muscle reinnervation, and RPNI procedures. So this is something you definitely don't want to miss. Help spread the word, guys. And if you can, share this video out to your support groups or to your own pages if you feel like doing so. So guys, as always, thank you for letting me be a part of your lives this evening. I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. God bless.